Thank you so much, guys. Now, while we witness Human Rights Day today, we also are in the middle of Salt Awareness Week. Now, this takes place from the 20th, that's when it kicked off. It runs up until the 26th of March. And with as many as 80% of people over the age of 50 in South Africa with high blood pressure, it's one of the most important health awareness weeks on the calendar. Now, for more and for our weekly health segment this morning, today we are joined by registered dietitian Gabriel Eksteen from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us, my man.
Good morning, Ewan. How are you doing?
Thank you. Not too bad, not too bad. I love this topic because I think salt is kind of, we don't talk about it enough. And I think that's why we have this week as well, just to raise that awareness. Now, we know that sugar is also usually given the blame for being very, very unhealthy. And we know that too much sugar is, is bad. We urge people to use very little of it. But sugar equally as bad. What is it about salt that, or the wrong salt, can I add at that, so that makes it so bad?
Yeah, I think, as you say, sugar definitely the flavour of the month, and rightly so, but salt just as important and often forgotten, hence what we're saying, forgotten killer. And it's really just about blood pressure. We're eating so much more salt than we realise because it's hidden in our foods, and that causes our blood pressure to go up. So more salt, more blood pressure. And with those figures you mentioned, 80% of older people with high blood pressure. Blood pressure is the leading cause of heart attacks and strokes, also some other diseases like kidney diseases. So even if we make a small difference to how much salt we eat, we can actually save thousands of lives in one simple step.
And I mean, it's a small adjustment that you make in your life. It's not something monumental. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's why there's so much emphasis on salt, because obviously blood pressure is not only salt. It's also obesity, it's stress, it's exercise. But salt is an easy change that we can do with a few different ways that we'll talk about.
Absolutely. Now, we are going to be taking your calls throughout the segment as well. Give us a shout, 0839133728. If you want to ask Gabriel any questions surrounding salt, or maybe you have a comment as well that you would like to add. Now, if we talk about too much salt, daily intake, what is too much salt? Because I mean, I personally, I do love my salt as well.
I think the biggest problem is we don't realize how much salt we eat. So the World Health Organization says we should be eating about 1 teaspoon of salt a day. And you probably think I don't use that much when I cook, but so much of it is already in the food.
In the food itself.
Just to give you an example, you have a sandwich just with some cheese and some ham on it, and you'll have half a teaspoon of salt. And that's what, half what you're supposed to have for the day. So it adds up so quickly. It's in everything. Sweet foods, breakfast cereals, biscuits, they all have salt in it. So it adds up, it accumulates through the day. And the average South African eats about 9 grams of salt. We should be having about 5 grams of salt. So you can see we've got a long way to go to get to a healthy salt intake.
I think also, I mean, we mentioned sugar at the top of it as well. And, a lot of people start cutting sugar out by stop putting sugar in their beverages, like your coffees and your teas and that kind of stuff. And after a while, you adapt, your taste buds adapt. Does the same kind of rule apply for salt?
Very, very much. It's so important to do it gradually because, you get used to lots of salt and for, much sugar the same through many years. You start when you're a small child having all these foods full of salt. So if you suddenly cut down on lots of salt, then food tastes bland. So obviously we want to flavor it differently, but also we want to give it some time. And once you've gone there, then you get used to it, and you don't miss the salt.
But it starts with being conscious about it, and then really starting to make a small change up to the point where you can...
Yeah, knowing that comes some, I think, is the first step.
Absolutely. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Like I mentioned, we are going to be taking your calls throughout the course of the morning as well. 0839133728. That's that number. Give us a shout, give us a comment, give us a question. Gabriel's here to answer all of those for you.
It's my feel-good breakfast show. It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Dis reg, ja, dit is jou goed voel ontbytprogram Expresso net hier op SABC3. Bye. Welcome. We're continuing our health discussion this morning. It's all about Salt Awareness Week that wraps up on the 26th of March. We have Gabriel Eksteen this morning joining us, registered dietitian and exercise psychologist, to run us through the do's and don'ts when it comes to salt. And also give us a shout, 0839133728. That is the number if you want to call us or ask a question, maybe leave a comment with us as well. And we're going to take it right now. We have a caller on the line. Katlego, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my man. What's your comment or your question for Gabriel?
Oh, my question was that I just wanted to know whether too much of salt can cause pimples on my face.
Can cause pimples on your face?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not aware that that's one of the causes of pimples, but I think pimples is quite a difficult thing. There's lots of potential causes for it, nutritional, non-nutritional, but I don't think salt is probably one of the biggest problems there. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I hope that helped, Katlego. Thank you very much for your comment there. Let's continue. I think we started off talking about, hidden salts in your foods as well. So it's actually in your best interest to understand food labels. So let's quickly take a look at a label and help us understand this. So what are we seeing here in terms of those hidden salts?
I think it's quite a good example because you can see it's quite complicated.
Yeah.
Lots of languages on there, lots of numbers, lots of words. And it's not always easy, but when you get stuck in and you use it all the time, you get into a habit of looking at it when you go shopping, it starts making sense. I think the most important thing to look at is there's 2 columns to your right-hand side, per 100 grams and then a serving.
Okay.
If you want to compare 2 foods, say for instance 2 breakfast cereals, and you're going to say which one is lower in salt, it's easiest to look at per 100 grams because then you're comparing apples with apples.
Okay.
But if you want to see how much salt or sugar something adds to your diet, you need to look at the portion of that food that you're eating. So then you're looking at the portion size.
Okay.
But you also need to obviously think, is this a realistic portion size? The portion size might be for half a muffin, but
Yeah.
you might be eating the whole muffin. So you need to be quite careful with interpreting food labels.
Yeah.
And it comes with practice really about looking at it
Yeah.
all the time and getting a bit more used to it.
So basically spotting the salt in this one if you really want to go. It's a total
yes, of
sodium
course.
at the bottom.
That's the other tricky thing is,
They don't say salt.
Yeah, we keep on talking about, you should reduce your salt intake, but then people look on a label and there's no salt on there.
Yeah.
So sodium is only half of what salt is, actually less than half. So when you look at sodium, you have to multiply that by 2.5 to get to an actual salt amount.
Okay.
Just as a rough guide, if something has got less than 120 milligrams of salt in 100 grams, that's generally quite low.
Okay.
If it's more than 600 milligrams per 100 grams, that's generally quite a high salt food, just to kind of set a ballpark.
Yeah. And quickly, I know that also on some products you get a heart, this heart label. What would that mean exactly in terms of health for that product?
Yeah, so that's our Heart Mark logo that we do for the Heart Foundation. And essentially, because it's complicated to look at food labels, we do all the hard work. And we categorize foods into, I think, more than 50 different categories. And for each of those categories, we look at fat, salt, sodium, sugar, fiber, and we decide, is this a healthy food or not, essentially based on a set of criteria. And then we put the little label on there. So essentially, we do the label reading for you, so you don't have to stand in the shop and try and figure it out.
So you can buy that product with peace of mind. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Gabriel joining us in studio. He's going to be here for the rest of the morning as well. Give us a shout. 083 9133 728. That's the number to call if you want to ask a question or leave a comment regarding salt this morning. We're going to be back with Gabriel in just a second. Right now, let's head over to the kitchen.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
That's right. Thank you so much, Graham. Yes, we're continuing our discussion on salt with Gabriel Eksteen from the Heart and Stroke Foundation this morning. 08391333728 is the number to call if you have a question or a comment. Right now, we have Elsabe on the line from Pretoria. Good morning, Elsabe.
Good morning, how are you?
I am very well. Thank you for your call. What's your question or your comment?
Yes, I just want to find out what is the correct salt to use? Himalaya, iodized, not iodized? You can please inform which one is the healthiest?
Okay.
I think that's a very good question, and with all these pink salts and black salts and things, it's becoming more relevant. Your Himalayan salts or similar salts have a very small amount of minerals in them, which may or may not be a little bit better for you, but essentially they're still 99% sodium chloride, which is basically what we refer to as table salt.
Yeah.
So you should still be using them, and restricting them like you would do table salt. Which one you buy, I think, will often be a financial decision. For most of the public out there, I'd say buy the cheapest salt that you can and spend your money on other healthy foods that we know will have a bigger impact on your diet. When it comes to iodine, there's a good reason why salt is iodated. And it's often people that live in rural areas, there's not a lot of seafood around, there's not a lot of iodine in the soil, they need to get the iodine from somewhere. And that's why the government decided to put iodine in some of those salts, and that's actually helped to get away from things like goiter that used to be a big problem in the past.
Okay.
So there's a reason for it, and we have to look at it from both sides.
All right, thank you. Elsabe, I hope that helps. So basically, if you want to really go healthy, try and stay away from the iodine.
No, iodine is not bad for you. If you get iodine from other sources, then you don't need to get it from your salt. If you want to use a pink salt or some kind of other salt, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
It's not going to be any worse, maybe slightly better.
Okay, cool. So quickly getting back to the label, we took a look at understanding the label, the sodium content. What ingredients on a label should we actually try and avoid, so to speak?
I think often we don't have that nutritional information table at the bottom, and then we rely on the list of ingredients at the top, and that tells us what has people actually put into that food. And that can also tell us a lot, especially when it comes to salt. It's not always salt on the label. We see things like sodium, we see things like MSG, sodium disodium phosphate, baking soda, which is also a form of salt. So we see all these things on the label. And that can give us a little bit of an idea of what's in that food. It's still a little bit tricky to know when something is high in salt and low in salt. And that's one of the reasons we're doing our salt calculator as well, which helps people to kind of figure out how much salt they eat.
I understand. Very, very interesting. That's why we have Salt Awareness Week. We're currently in it. It runs up until the 26th of March. If you still have any questions, we have one sit-down left with Gabriel this morning, 083-913-3728. That's the number. That's after the break.
It's my feel-good breakfast show. It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome to it. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso, only on SABC3. Back for last chat with Gabriel Eksteen from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. It is Salt Week, wrapping up on the 26th of March. We're taking your questions as well, 083-913-3728. Gabriel, once again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's talk about this one quickly. In June 2016, legislation was passed to control the amount of salt put into food by companies. Now, how does this legislation actually work? How can we understand it a little bit better?
This is a very good thing. Most of our salt actually does not come from what we add. It comes from what's already in the food. And that's why our government said, well, let's change how much salt is in the food we eat, which is great. So they took I think about the 8 most salty foods we eat, and we said, well, this is the limit on how much salt should be in those foods. The saltiest thing we eat is bread, because we eat so much of it. So South Africans get most of their salt from bread. But since 2016, there's about 30 to 40% less salt in many breads, which is great news. So that should cut down about 1 to 2 grams of salt per person every day because of what legislation has done. So it's good. It's a step in the right direction, but it's not a complete solution, because we still need to look at fast foods and what we do at home when we cook.
Exactly. But I mean, it will make a small difference. I mean, combined with the sugar tax as well. Cutting down on the salt could ultimately lead to a healthier life for many South Africans.
I think the one study that's already been done to estimate the effect said that we'll have about 7,000 less deaths every year from heart diseases just because of a 1 gram difference in salt intake for the population.
Yeah.
So you can see how a small difference in salt intake can make a massive difference for us as a country.
Absolutely. And just maybe for those viewers that's just tuned in, we are talking about Salt Awareness Week. It wraps up this coming Sunday, a fantastic week just to really raise awareness and speak about the implications of too much salt. So if you have too much salt over a long period of time, I mean, what can you expect? I mean, in terms of health, what can it cause?
I think we get used to lots of salt all the time, so we eat too much salt chronically, and that causes a gradual, slow increase in our blood pressure levels, which happens in 80% of people. And of course, people that's already got high blood pressure, which is 30-40% of our population, it makes their high blood pressure worse. So by cutting down salt, we improve our blood pressure levels. It's as simple as that.
All right, it's a small change, it's a conscious decision that you take, and that's it. Try it out, and obviously we want you to live your best life possible. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us this morning, giving us very, very valuable information. All the best for the rest of the week.
Thank
I'm
you
sure
very
you've got a couple of things planned.
Lots going on, yeah.
Absolutely. Gabriel Eksteen joining us this morning from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, talking Salt Awareness Week. Right now it is that time of your Tuesday. Zoe standing by with your news headlines.